My last question. Oh, this one is so juicy. As someone who identifies as super blackety black centric,
Mm-hmm.
me,
Yes.
you know that sometimes I will like kind of jokingly say, but you know it's rooted in my like side concern, and I know that it's my issue, which is why I don't make it y'all's issue. But
Mm-hmm.
it's still an issue in my brain that, well, damn, why they not learning some African languages? Why them know so much about Korea and Japan, and they don't know shit about Kenya, and Nigeria and Ghana, them something.
Mm-hmm.
How I'm wondering
Yes.
whether you have, it's not advice, it's not tips. I wanted to name that out loud because
Mm-hmm.
I know some of our listeners are similar to me, and that we are, as unschoolers, we know that we're not going to try to force anything, but as schoolish, regular ass humans, we're like, but why wouldn't you? Right? And
Mm-hmm.
then to bring in the other mix of not wanting to have some limited idea of what a black child is or isn't and what they should or shouldn't learn.
Yeah.
So as some of us as adults and caretakers, caregivers wrestle with that, I'd
Mm-hmm.
love to know your thoughts on that, if any.
Yeah. So the first thing that comes to mind, particularly when it comes to Black people learning East Asian languages, is to think about, for me, there was like a certain ability that I had, or a certain option that was presented to me in these predominantly East Asian spaces to reinvent myself. When you think of a Black person, like, in Black America, it's like you are who you are, you're Black, and there are expectations that follow with that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a Black African, there are expectations that follow with that. The fact that Japan, for example, is 99% or something like that, like Japanese people, ethnically Japanese people, it gives you an opportunity to like really speak for yourself and be yourself, because that's all they have to go on when you're talking person to person. Meeting a Japanese person, they may have some expectations from film that's been presented to them, but it's nowhere near as crushing as it is to like meet someone in America and be a Black person and they're already like, yeah, I know everything about you. And I'm not saying that like Japan or South Korea are like perfect in the way they deal with Black folks. Not at all. Don't get it twisted. But there really is an ability to just introduce yourself as you and get to fully expand on what that means in a way that is not as easily available in places where people already expect Black people to be certain things.
Yeah, like revoking the Black card if you don't do this, or you don't sound like this, or you don't wear this. Because I remember I saw that with cosplay. I got so excited. We went to something.
Conventions, yeah.
Yes. And I got so excited just seeing young Black kids like my kids who didn't have these specific ideas of, if you were a Black kid, you'd listen to this kind of music, you dress this way. You thought this other stuff was like crazy white people shit. When I was growing up, you didn't even really share as a Black kid if you listened to white people music, because you would get clowned.
Yeah. And we also, in these spaces, particularly when it comes to anime and K-pop, like, we find each other. Like, we don't just like assimilate into like the native Japanese or South Korean cult. Like, we fucking find each other every single time.
And we as in Black folks.
Yeah, Black people find each other like everywhere. And it doesn't stop at that point. Like, there are studios, like anime production studios with Black people who are just like, I like it. There's not enough afros. Like, and they did that. So it's not a disconnect from Black culture in any sense, or it doesn't have to be. Rather, it's just a difference, and again, that chance to actually define yourself as a person.
Yes, which so many grown-ass Black folks are looking for now, and having the courage to speak up, to address in all different ways.
Right.
All different ways. So and I, as a parent who, again, comes from that background and mindset, I'm not saying it's a thing to recover from. I think it's a thing to expand on and to check yourself, which is what I try to do. Like, so if I'm having this feeling, is it actually because I feel like I need more education, or I shouldn't, and I've gotten to watch you and Sage really just expand so much of yourselves through your exploration of culture, because it's not just the language. And even if
Yeah.
it was, I've gotten to see so much of who y'all are and are becoming and the connections you make through that. So if you limit that because you think that it isn't Black enough or that it opposes Blackness in some way, you really got to figure out how to check yourself and be in community with people who can help you move through that so that you don't put that onto your kid.
Yes. And I think maybe this will be helpful is to think that, for me at least, I also went through those questions with myself. Because again, it's mostly someone who not only doesn't look like you, but doesn't know anything about you. It's like, it's the greatest thing ever to be able to really speak to who you are, but it's also so alienating. And so I, at least, had to be really strong on me being a Black person, like me being a person and me being a Black person in those spaces. And so I had to also really think about what I wanted to represent in a way as a Black person. I was like, what ideas, if I'm presented with the opportunity to educate a Korean person on certain things about my interpretation of Black American culture, what do I want that to be? What do I want to say? What nuances do I want to give? Those are all things that I had to think about for myself in order to be able to communicate with those people. So we don't just go around being like, doo-dee-doo, it's all Japanese and Koreans. And it's like, nah, you know.
Yeah, totally. And I've been fortunate to witness some of that. But I promise you, if you're listening and you haven't witnessed it, it doesn't mean that it's not happening. Like I remember when you found, I don't know if whether that was around Japanese or Korean, I don't know. But you found there was like some group of Black people with that interest, and y'all were just talking about so many. It was like such a supportive space, and it
It
also
was Korean.
shifted. Oh, okay, because it also seems to me like how could that not also shift culture so that those misconceptions of we're all athletes or musicians or whatever the fuck, those common things that a lot of people who go to those countries as Black folks witness, that's also how you influence that, no?
Absolutely, because it feels like, in my experience, I've been able to educate on my terms and without the expectation that I was going to do that. And so it's made it so much less stressful to be able to explain these concepts. I have a lot more space to, even though I'm explaining like the same couple things a lot, it just doesn't feel like it's my responsibility. It doesn't feel like I'm the monolithic representation of Black people in that area, just because I'm able to communicate that nuance a lot easier, partially because I speak their language, I think. I think that it makes certain Koreans and Japanese people a lot more receptive when it's like, I didn't just come here to like look at the anime and then dip, you know, I'm actually trying to exchange in that sense. And I think sometimes it can make people who are open to it even more willing to take in what you're saying and share that with other people with the privilege that they have being part of that group.
Yeah, yo, always, always, always really appreciate your insights.